I'll get started here. I'm going to go ahead and share, and then as we kind of go through, just to be thinking about your questions, we can kind of go into. Also, we'll have about 10 minutes towards the end, and I'd love to open it up for conversation. So I'm going to try to do a share here, and we'll see how that works, and then hopefully you'll let me know if can you all see that? Maybe you all can just kind of tell me when I was in presentation mode. Yes, okay, perfect. Thank you, Wendy. Very, very kind of you. So I'm going to go into presentation mode and open the conversation. So, well, first of all, welcome everybody who came from different parts of the country. It's great to meet you all virtually. And my name's James Gray, and I look forward to a conversation. You know, I'll share some things for the first 15, 20 minutes, but I'd love to hear and engage you in the conversation about sharing some ideas around what we can do as product managers and product leaders to build market-leading products. It's certainly a question in that it's on everybody's mind. And I'll share some examples. And what I think would be helpful is also share a recent example of an approach that we took at Products That Count to design a new category and build a new market-leading product around product mentorship for product teams. And again, I think examples always help around how we apply some of these techniques. So I look forward to your feedback and conversation. Again, my name is James Gray. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Products That Count. And my career spans 30 years of product experience across product management, IT, and data science. And I spent most of my career building software products and platforms at startups to large organizations such as Microsoft, where I spent 10 years. Also spent time at Chevron and Aspen Technology building products. And my career has always been a combination of kind of the fusing of both business and technology. Is probably why I ended up in product. I did my MBA at Berkeley and also did my master's in data science at UC Berkeley. So let me just tell you quickly a little bit about Products That Count. We're the most influential network of product managers in the world. We reach over 300,000 product managers around the globe. That's about 20% of the audience. And very simply, we offer and enable the best practices from influential product executives at the most influential companies available to all. That includes over 3,000 articles, videos, and podcasts, all authored by C and VP level product leaders. We also host over 100 events a year, bringing together great product people like yourself who've got passion around driving and shaping the product conversation. So let's get into this conversation around some ideas to how organizations really win in a market where there's tough competition and the market is rapidly changing. It's certainly the era that we've been in over these last 6 months, and products can really pop up very, very quickly, given how technology is very cheap and it's readily available. So that can be a real challenge. And many companies, as we know, over these last 6+ months, many companies have been challenged. Companies have gone out of business. But there's been companies who've actually, in this era, who've been able to flourish. And so I'd like to talk about a couple of them and some of the approaches that they've used to actually flourish. And this is a product that many of us have probably used, and it's Zoom. It was a product that we all got very familiar with very, very quickly on a daily basis, certainly when the pandemic hit. And it emerged as a great product. It became a household name and used by people across different use cases. Students who were attending the classroom, some of us who were staying in contact with friends and family, and also doing business with our colleagues who were all working in remote locations. And they did this in a time where the market was rapidly changing. There was high demand around companies who could serve, being able to connect people during this crisis. And it was amazing. I checked yesterday. In January, Zoom actually was priced at $68 a share. Yesterday, it closed at around 537. So if you've got a great product in a great product category, it can be very lucrative for the company, but it can also drive a lot of value for customers like us. And so Zoom was able to do it, and they've achieved about 50% market share, even against really formidable companies such as Google and Microsoft. And those companies have, in the case of Google Meet, Google, free distribution, and in the case of Microsoft and Microsoft Teams, really massive distribution around companies who adopted and bought in to the Microsoft platform. So a very, very impressive performance. Now, it wasn't just Zoom that we saw this phenomena. There were other companies who excelled in categories to become real market leaders. Some of them that are on the lower left around Slack and Amplitude, Atlassian. And they all kind of did this in similar ways. And so our thesis is that in this new decade, a decade that we call the age of product, we believe that the best product wins, given kind of these examples. And now it's not necessarily the rule that if you have a great product, you'll always win. But as we'll see here, shortly, is that if you've got a great product in a different category or different, a product that's different in a category that you've defined, and it offers a unique value proposition, you're certainly increasing your chances of winning, such as kind of like Zoom had actually showed us. But to do this, we know of building a great product. Behind every great product is a great product team who know the actual product to build, for a changing market, and they actually know how to build it right. And so every company would love to have a great product team. They would love to have the Zoom product team and kind of that stock price. But the reality is that what we've seen is that many product teams face challenges on their journey to building great products. So let's kind of take a look at what we've seen around kind of a typical product management team. You'll notice, first off, is that these teams are fairly inexperienced. 3 out of 4 product managers have been on the job less than a year. They've either come from other disciplines such as engineering, marketing. They may lack kind of that depth of knowledge and product vocabulary. Second, these teams are actually very small in general, right? And we've seen this across many different kind of size companies, is that relatively they're pretty small. And the challenge comes when they have to scale themselves and they work across the organization to work collaboratively with all of the other disciplines that are needed to design, build, and operate great products. All of those other disciplines that need to come together, right? Us as product people, we often are called to lead that charge and spearhead that as the internal champion. Third is that the budget, about 70% of their budget is spent around hiring and learning. That's a pretty sizable chunk of money. And then lastly, the other challenge that we've seen in companies is that the product leaders are pretty challenged to find time to mentor members of their product organization, given the demands of their role. And so where does that leave us? And what we've seen is that ineffective product management is a really costly and big organizational problem. We've seen up to 30% around failed product launches, products never making their way to the market. We've also seen lost engineering throughput, the velocity by which the product team is actually able to work and produce and deliver products into the market. And then companies suffer of their best product people leaving for organizations who are great product teams who've got a great company. And this obviously causing churn in the organization. And all 3 of those really come together to impact the bottom line of companies, missed revenue. that ultimately impacts the company and their ability to be profitable and thrive. And so in many companies, we see that the so-called product managers really function as project managers, and they fail to kind of build the right product and build it right. They're often influenced by a very strong sales team. They act as order takers, or are heavily influenced by engineering to drive kind of more technology initiatives. And so the conundrum here really is that, right, there are many kind of resources out there that have existed for quite some time, such as kind of companies trying to do this internally. There's lots of YouTube videos that are out there. There's, really expensive, courses that you could take that have a limited time period. There's kind of in-classroom training that had certainly been the case, and also conferences. So all those exist, but what we're seeing is that product teams still don't have what they need, certainly in this time, to really increase their knowledge, to accelerate at the pace of the business, to build a great product and become a market leader in their space. And so what we've done is looked, how do we get at the root of this problem? And so we believe really solving this problem is having a great hiring program, but more importantly, having a very solid mentorship program to groom these product managers as product managers who can build a great product, build it right, and become a market-leading organization. Now, it's not just kind of our view on this world around seeing the need to really lead to market leadership. This was a recent report that was just published a couple of weeks ago from McKinsey that also validated that that these are the top 3 things that companies are doing and have been the most successful the last 6 months, kind of in this COVID world. The number one thing that they've done is filling gaps in talent. The next 2, using more effective, more advanced technology, as well as accelerating the ability to experiment and innovate their products, being the 3rd thing. And so we know that for us as product people, that having a great product team, these last 2 are really only possible if you've got a really great product team who can drive those initiatives around the technology and experimentation. And so kind of given that background around, challenges of becoming a market leader, what I'd like to do is to share a framework that was popularized a couple of years ago and that we've used around taking a very strategic approach to claiming this whole space of becoming a market leader. And I would encourage you as product people to look at leveraging this example as you think about you're looking at your products and looking at your company. And so the thesis of this framework is really predicated on the thesis that that the company that best frames the problem and defines it is often the company that really kind of thrives and wins and takes the category. So those companies, they do an awesome job at marketing the problem. And of course, they'll have a solution and a great product for it, but they really kind of take the torch on behalf of the industry and make it really clear about what the problem is. And so let's kind of first talk about each three of these elements and how do we use them to become a market leader. And again, the first one is creating a great category. And it's a place in the market that we, and as the product managers, product leaders in the C-suite, have identified a place that we really can offer something unique, and it offers something not necessarily better, but certainly different, or solves a problem that customers don't realize that they have. And there's lots of examples out there that we all kind of know. Salesforce created cloud CRM with its kind of no software mantra many years ago. Netflix did it, right, when they created on-demand entertainment over the internet. Apple created at least three product categories, probably more, when they introduced the iPod, iTunes, and iPhone. And so, the interesting thing is that as soon as this category is really well defined, well understood, the market really demands a great solution around that, which kind of leads us to this second pillar of the framework around having a great product. And we've spoken about that a little bit, already, about what makes a great product. But these leaders have a great offering, and not only a great offering, they've solved the problem in a unique way. It's not it's not a me too, and it's not necessarily better. They also have a very thoughtful roadmap around how does this product kind of advance throughout the course of time to ultimately solve the problem that's been articulated by the category and kind of deliver on that promise. And then finally, a great company. And everything around the company must rally around the category. They must have the best talent to create a great product. And when you bring these things together, it can be a very, very powerful force. And part of the piece about a great company is that they all have a very unique point of view of how they see the world, that fits with the category and how they're ultimately going to change the world. So think about these, right, as product people, as product leaders, even as marketing, whatever discipline you're in. And it's how you design all three of these at the same time, synchronously, and that's what we've done, and I'll share more about that, that together really condition the market and change the way people think and offer a great, unique solution to a problem that's certainly important to be solved. And so when you design a new category, the thing that you're doing is you're taking prospective customers essentially on a journey. You're taking them on a journey in a world that is how they currently think, from the way they think now, to a new frame of reference. And that's often called conditioning the market, taking them from a world that they knew to something different. And so Uber, right, they took us from a world of hailing down a taxi cab to a new and easier way with a great mobile experience. Netflix conditioned us and took us from a world of going to Blockbuster at that time to go to CDs to actually having CDs delivered to our doorstep. And then Salesforce, great example, where they took customers who knew the costly world of on-prem, of Siebel, and took us customers to kind of cloud CRM. So kind of with that kind of backdrop, kind of going the from and the to, this is a technique that you can use kind of in your product strategy, where what we did, kind of going back to the problem that I've been talking about of ineffective product management, product teams not having really the mentorship and the expertise that they need to build great products. In this case, we've created a whole new category that we're calling a product acceleration platform. And very simply, it takes product teams from this world around kind of one and done kind of courses and conferences to a world of learning that is progressive. It's something that is tailored to the needs of every product manager, and it advances it through a very kind of prescriptive mentorship plan all around the organization and all around the person. So it's this idea of, what can be done to kind of accelerate product team performance. And so let's talk a little bit about, what are some of the key characteristics of this new category. And as you think about your new products, it needs to offer something ultimately that's different than what exists today. And you need to take customers on this journey kind of from and to. And so I'll share kind of what we did around kind of describing this new category, and give you hopefully some ideas of how that may work for yourself. And so this idea of a new category we call the product acceleration platform. Very simply, it enables anyone to build a great product by offering kind of product teams a very personalized approach to learning this really challenging craft of product management. So let's kind of talk about kind of the three characteristics of any company that would have an offering in this product acceleration platform. The first is breadth. The ability to have world-class content from the top practitioners in the field is really critical. The other thing that we know, right, as practitioners is in product, there are many different kind of domains that need to come together to shape the learning experience. You need to know business, you need to know technology, you need to know research and experimentation, and often psychology, to kind of name a few. So these platforms really need to have a comprehensive set of kind of content to build kind of a breadth of content that's available for product managers across many different disciplines. As we transition into the second characteristic, that's all about having a depth. Breadth is great, but we need to be able to kind of go deep and get thought leadership from the best thinkers who can go really, really deep on a particular subject. We know also it requires depth in a specific domain or vertical. Every one of those domains and verticals have a unique knowledge and their own kind of constraints. We also have to tease out the diverse voices that exist from the leading thinkers out there. Depth across different geographies. We know that in different parts of the world, there's probably different factors that are driving kind of the economics and what products are resonating. The other aspect of depth is that the world is changing every day. And so we see a need for latest product thinking around events that are shaping kind of the world. An example could be thought leadership around what are product teams doing to compete in an era of COVID or any event that may hit us in the future. The third characteristic of a product acceleration platform is called progression. And you can really just think about that as a very kind of personalized program, self-directed and driven to increase the performance and impact all around a product manager and a product leader. You can think about it kind of as a Peloton type experience where kind of the levels of impact and performance kind of continue to grow over time. And so that is kind of a key difference around some of the other solutions that I kind of spoke to you about. This idea kind of similar to kind of a training program, an athletic program where you're becoming stronger, you're growing impact, and it's not kind of a one and done type learning experience. And so those are the three pillars for any company who have an offering in this new category called product acceleration platform. I also want to note that it's not just kind of this unique content, the depth and progression, but it also needs to weave in the unique knowledge around each organization. And we recognize and encourage that each organization needs to shape their own kind of product culture. And so these platforms, they need to be able to integrate the best practices and learnings that come from within the organization itself and become part of their own kind of personalized instance of the platform so that they capture that and it can influence and train people around how they do product within their own organization. And so just to close on this, again, this was a way of differentiating a new offering, a new category, using kind of breadth, depth, regression, which are the essential components for any company who has an offering in this new category called the product acceleration platform category. Okay, so let me kind of bring it home. I'd love to kind of open it up for conversation around, how does this really kind of work from a first principles point of view? So we believe that a product acceleration platform is the kind of the key for any company in a blueprint that wants to become a leader. And it starts with hiring and grooming great product talent. That's what a product acceleration platform does. And from there, those teams are able to build a great product in a specific category that they've chosen, that they've designed to ultimately serve customers in a new way, delight them in a new way, therefore kind of leading to building their brand, becoming a stronger company, and ultimately growing revenue, growing market share as the market leader, and then finally also kind of continuing the loop as they become a great destination for the top kind of talent in the market for product managers. So I'd love to just kind of pause there and kind of open it up for questions. I'd love to hear from you. Connect on LinkedIn or any of these channels. And for those of you who have questions, let's go ahead and we'll transition into any of those questions. Okay, let me kind of move over here. Interesting talk. Would you? How would you recommend convincing new coming stakeholders about the important role of the product team? Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. What we're seeing in a lot of organizations is just that companies are looking at ways to elevate the product team to an important position, right? In some cases, they might be kind of tucked within an engineering team or a product team. And so, what we see, one of the most important things is kind of elevating that role of product higher within the organization, being able to have a chief product officer that's able to understand what the company vision is, the CEO vision, and then be in a position to frankly translate that into a great product strategy and a great roadmap that can actually realize the company's vision. So that's kind of an idea, one of my ideas, but certainly if you want to, Anand, kind of respond to that, love to talk about that a little bit more. I'd love to be able to, hear from, different folks around, did this framework kind of resonate with you, and did the example, that I shared with you, make sense? It was an approach that we recently kind of used as we thought about, again, this problem, and as we thought about how best that we can help really product teams kind of on their journey to, create a great product team and really operating as a high performance team. Anand, how would you convince new coming stakeholders the important role, as a product team, just to maybe build upon that, look at the companies that are leading the market today, right? And I would bet you that they have a very, very strong product team and kind of product-led culture. Other questions? You're welcome. You're welcome, Anand. All right. Yeah, I'd love to be able to hear other questions. I know we have people who are still on the chat here, so feel free to pop into a question, or even if you want to come off and ask a question live, that would be fantastic as well. Is your presentation available online? Yeah, I think it's going to be certainly shared. Again, absolutely. The idea, what I wanted to do was just kind of share some of the ideas that we've learned over many months that would hopefully be valuable to you as you think about kind of your product strategy and how you might go about not only the product strategy, but really framing this whole idea around the category itself. The question from Kristen was, how would you recommend going about transitioning the attitude in a tech org of PMs being more project managers? What are some of the parts of the discipline that make it different? Yeah, let me speak to that a little bit. So I guess maybe a clarifying question, maybe Kristen, it sounds like maybe you're in an organization that is very tech driven. Maybe it's dominated perhaps by, I'm expecting maybe by the engineering team. Yeah, I mean, I've been in organizations that as well. I think one of the key things that makes that discipline different, right? That we as product managers, right, we have to be very, very thoughtful as I kind of shared, what is the problem that we're actually going to go solve? What is that problem? Is it unique? What exactly is it? And somebody needs to really do that work. It's not an engineering, it's not a technology thing. It's about looking at the problem. It's at looking at what users are struggling with or consumers are struggling with, and being very thoughtful around what can actually be done to solve it. And so I would recommend that would be one key thing that the product team, if you're a product team who's not doing that, then the question is, really who is? And if all you're doing, is maybe being the liaison into the Scrum teams of the engineering team, that's more like project management, not product management. And then maybe just to build on, what type of culture and discipline should I advocate for? That really does start with, as I kind of presented, is this very thoughtful approach around the category and then the product itself, right? So if you're just building what sales wants or what engineering wants, then in my view, I think you're missing a great opportunity to be very thoughtful, as the examples have shown us in time. Salesforce, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, those are all great examples that the companies that kind of went on to win, they really, defined the category, they marketed the problem, they had an awesome, product, but they also had a great company behind it. And so the culture really needs to shape to kind of a true belief that it's that product-led culture that ultimately is going to win. I know we actually have an ebook on our website that specifically kind of talks about how to actually go about kind of influencing and changing the culture. And then a question from Pushpak: how would you suggest a current MBA student pivot in the PM role in tech industry from your experience? Well, I think an MBA student is certainly, you can take a lot of those skills as I did, having kind of that market focus acumen in business. I would say that if you've got technology experience, that certainly kind of helps. And then the kind of the key is being able to land that first job. So being able to show that you've got, and certainly in your case, in terms of the tech industry, that you can flex. Maybe you've got an undergrad kind of tech degree, that you're able to fuse that together with, as I did, kind of around both the MBA, kind of the business lens and the technology lens, and that active translation around kind of market customer need into something that that the engineering team can actually deliver on and execute on, is a really, really hard skill. And so I would recommend that you focus there. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, I'd be glad as well to provide any other kind of follow-up kind of questions and things that you might be interested. So feel free to do that, Pushpak. And then I see a question around Marutu: in an org using waterfall for over 2 decades, how to convince the engineering teams on the value that product managers add and the significance of it, along with agile transformation. So that's a great question, right? In this age of COVID, as you can see, if you look, right, it's been those companies that have been able to really, really accelerate really quickly, right? Adjusting around their product mix, how they serve customers. They've translated from physical to digital. And so I think if you're, and I've been in there, at Microsoft, there was a time where, I was in a very kind of waterfall approach, this was many years ago, but I think it's going to be really, really hard to compete against companies who have a very agile approach and who are able to, as we saw even from the McKinsey study, who are able to innovate at this pace of business. I think it's going to be really, really hard to do that. And so your question here is that being upfront would make people up their defenses and averse to change and transformation. Your thoughts on the value add the PM and the transformation, please. Yeah, I think certainly it will help to make sure your product leadership understands that the ability to change and rapidly have those engineering teams have the velocity. Hopefully that in itself is credence to itself, that perhaps you experiment maybe in one parts of your organization. There's lots of best practices that are out there around how agile teams kind of operate. And maybe one of the techniques is maybe there's a product that you're able to, experiment and get it going and see how that you could go about making a transition, to something that's more agile and kind of more 2-week sprint driven. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a great planner, right? You still have to have very thoughtful product management. You're just changing, right, the view of what you're going to be building over these next 2 weeks. All right. Well, I know we're a little bit over, but if there's any other questions, I would love to share any other things that you might be curious about. Would love to connect with any of you who are on LinkedIn. Again, presentation will be available. I'd love to connect. Pushbach, yeah, you're very, very welcome. Great. What is the title of the McKinsey study you mentioned? Yeah, it's actually on their website. I encourage you to go look at it. It's I actually have it in the slide. I can kind of pull it up, or I can put it in the chat really quickly here. It's this one. How COVID-19 has pushed companies over the technology tipping point and transformed a business forever. So yeah, I'll put that in the chat. And I think if you're a company maybe who hasn't adopted some of the ideas that are in that in that study, I think it will be an eye opener probably for some of your executives, right? Because it's at the heart of talent, but it's also at the heart of accelerating the adoption of advanced technology, accelerating testing and experimentation and product innovation. So I encourage you to take a good look at that. Corton, thanks for the question. Yeah, Marutu, yeah, the question there was, accelerating would be possible using product to experiment with these changes might be a good argument to convince. Yeah, I mean, nothing stops, right, from you all doing some testing, right? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think there's evidence out there that, again, the companies that are doing this the best, the ones who've been the most successful over these last 6 months, they've certainly accelerated their ability to adjust, again, product mix, interact with customers in new ways to really stay in business and thrive. Corton, yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? I'm going to try that in my org. Well, that's great. Maruti, I'd love to hear how that works. Let me know. And again, reach me on LinkedIn. Be curious to connect and see how that works, and share any of my experience. Would be glad to as well. Well, great. Any other final questions? Looks like we're having even some people continuing to join us here, which is fun. I'll wait another minute or two, see if there's any other final questions of people who are still in here. I see a number of people who are still in this session. So if you've got any interesting questions, or did what I kind of share around the approach that we've recently used around as we thought about how do we build a great product and a great company in a great category, we've seen really an interesting approach around how do we bring together the organization to do that. All right. I don't see any final questions here. I know we still have people who are still in the session. I really enjoyed the time, spending a little bit of time with you. Um, Again, if there's any last question, I'll certainly take that. And I look forward to connecting with you all. And if you're a product person and you want a great destination for really some amazing content, I encourage you to go to our website, productsthatcount.com. You can create a member profile. We've got a lot of amazing free content that hopefully will help you in your journey to advancing your kind of capability as a product manager and product leader. Great. Well, good. If there's any final questions, I'm going to call it a wrap. And I wish everybody and thanks everybody for hosting me here on Mobile on Air. And you all have a great rest of the conference. And I look forward to hearing from you. Any of those would love to connect. I look forward to hearing from you. Have an awesome day.